Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're going to get started in about 8 minutes. We'll talk today about end-to-end Agile acquisition. It's going to be fun, and we're going to have a special guest today, so it's going to be even more exciting. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned. We're going to start at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick Chaillan. I'm going to be starting in about 7, 8 minutes. Again, we're going to be talking about end-to-end Agile acquisition today. If you have a question, please make sure you put it in the comments below. Start with your question with a Q, so we know it's a question, not a comment. And if you're here and you want to share where you're from and what company you're with, please do that. Also in the comments, I'll be highlighting people throughout the show as well. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned. About 6-7 minutes, we'll get started. Thanks so much. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick Chaillan. We're going to be starting in about 5-6 minutes. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have a questions, please put it in the comment below. Start with a Q, and then if you just want to say hi and share who you are and what company or federal team you're with, please put in a comment as well, and we'll be highlighting you. And wanted to do a shout out to Jason Catman for joining us today as a special guest from USDS. Stay tuned. We'll have a fun today talking about end-to-end agile acquisition. Thanks so much. Hey, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. We're going to be starting in 5 minutes. We'll talk about agile acquisition today. It's going to be fun. We have a few slides, share a little bit of insights, take your questions live. If you have questions, please put it into the comment section below. Start your question with a Q so we know it's a question. If you just want to say hi and share what company you're with or federal team, put it into the comment as well. We highlight you today. So stay tuned. We'll be starting in about 3-4 minutes. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today again. We'll be starting in about 2-3 minutes. Just so you know, there's about 2-3 minutes delay between when I talk and when you see what I say. So keep that in mind. That's the beauty of LinkedIn Live. Also, we'll be taking your questions live, so put it into the comments below. And if you just want to say hi and share what organizations you're with, put it also in the comment below. We'll highlight you today. So stay tuned. We'll be starting in about 2-3 minutes. Hi, everybody, again. Just stay tuned. We're going to be starting in 1 minute. Again, today, we're going to be talking about end-to-end Agile Acquisition. We have a great special guest today, Jason Catman, joining us from USDS. So stay tuned. We'll take your questions live as well. So put them into the comment section below. And we'll start with a few slides and some information, and then we'll get into the meat of the subject. You can ask questions. Of course, when we're done talking about Agile Acquisition, you can ask questions about anything else. So stay tuned. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started now. There's a little bit of a delay. As I told you before, when I speak, you will see what I said now in about 3 minutes. So keep that in mind. If you have questions, put them into the comment section below. Just use a Q at the beginning of the sentence to make sure we understand it's a question. If you just want to say hi or share, also put it into the comment. We highlight you. If you want to say what organization you're with, do that. It's always fun. We know we have people from all over the world joining us. So it's always cool to see. Don't be shy. We'll be talking today about end-to-end Agile Acquisition. I have a great guest with me today. Joining me, Jason Catman. He's going to be sharing with us a lot of insights from his time, both as an officer in the Air Force, but also as a civilian, and now at USDS. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, I'll go through a few slides. I wanted to share a few insights. So first, if you have not already registered, because of throttling and issues with events on LinkedIn, it's always difficult to know and get the invite for the event. So if you want to register, we're not going to spam you. It's just a way to give you the notification for the bi-weekly meetings. So register at ama.preventbreach.com/register. You can click on that link and you'll be able to just register and get the emails and the invites, and there's easy button to click it to add it to your schedule. All right, so when it comes to also you guys helping us, wanted to thank you again for all the people that came up with 230 names of what I could call this show. And so we picked one, and 3 people came up with the name at different times the same day, so it's interesting. And we went with In the Nick of Time. There was a lot of good names. I thought about it for a long time, but then we decided to go with In the Nick of Time, mostly because my wife would have killed me if I didn't do that, so you can blame her later. But I love it anyways. So I also wanted to get some of your feedback when it comes to logos. So we've been working with to get a logo down for this In the Nick of Time. So I'm going to share a few slides quick. You're going to be able to go back and pause the video. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but in the comment section, if you have a favorite logo that you like better, there's 3 slides. I'm going to go through quick so you can take a look at it. I'm not going to tell you which one I like the best. And of course, it's a little bit small because I had to fit it into the slides, and there's 3 slides already. So if you, there's some I look like a serial killer, but let's not pick that one. There's one where, of course, they use my face. I'm not the big fan of that, but and then there's one where you see me as an eye. Perfect, since I'm selfish and everything. So as you can see here, there's numbers at the top. So if you like a number, just put on the comment which number you like. Okay, that's always great. And then so I'm gonna go through the 3 slides. That's slide number 1. Okay. Take a look at it. I don't mind number 39, but I think I like also number 35 as well. But and then there's a second slide with more logos. Okay, of course, Great American Flag. That's a must. I wanted that. Wanted some logos of jets and bombers and satellites and stuff. So, and of course, the name of the show, In the Nick of Time. So, so that's slide number 2. You can see number 34 to 26. And then slide number 3. You can see another set of logos, very much all the same style anyways, so not a big difference, but some are look dead, so I'm not sure that's a great idea. But take a look at the different options and then put on the chat, okay? And I guess a lot of people are saying number 35. So I'm going to go back and take a look at what number 35 is. That's my favorite. So damn, I just gave you my favorite. So I shouldn't have done that. No, you're going to be biased. All right. So those are the 3 slides. Again, you can always go back and post the video later and comment. I'm going to wait probably a day before picking, and that's going to be our logo. So that's fun. All right. Thank you so much for commenting. And I see we have more people joining, so I'm going to do a shout out. Of course, you're hiding your profile, so you need to add me on LinkedIn. Add me on LinkedIn. When I can't see you, this is what I see. I see LinkedIn user. So we don't have your name. We know you're the CEO of VG IT Service, but we don't have your name. So we need your name, okay? And I see Gerald is here, as always. Hi, Gerald. Jeremiah. And I see, who else did I miss? Donald is here. Hi, Don. And a lot of people agree number 35 for the logo. That's awesome. All right, so just a few piece of information here. And again, the slides will be on the website, but you can, of course, find those on my LinkedIn. So as you can see, I posted about why we are preparing for the wrong fights, fifth generation fighters, very little investment in hypersonic and drones and swarming and AI. So I think you should take a look at that video here on drone killer robots. And it's a pretty old video, but it's something that's very much still happening. So you should take a look at it. And then if you missed, we announced, well, not we, because I'm not part of it, but Project Blue in the Navy announced that they open source with defense unicorns the ZOF project, which really, if you want to think about what it is, it's an easy push button deployment to instantiate and set up Kubernetes cluster on air-gapped networks. So in this use case, it's for submarines, but it could be for anything where they can take ZOF and Big Bang and instantiate the full Kubernetes stack air-gapped, and it's a self-shipping capability, right? Pretty cool stuff. So it's open source, again, awesome. So check it out if you have not seen the source code on GitHub /defenseunicorn/ZOF. And then for those who care about AI, if you missed the State of AI report, please take a look. There's a lot of great information, a lot of great data. Of course, it's a little bit biased because it doesn't really understand that there's a wall between the US Department of Defense and the commercial companies. We just assume that the government has access to all of the companies, which, as we know, is not true. So, and by the way, if you still show as a LinkedIn user like this, it's because you don't let First Connection see your name. I guess that's probably why. It's in the setting of LinkedIn, so you probably should change that. And then I see Alex is here, so I want to say hi. And we even have someone from the UK, but again, same thing. I don't have your name because you probably hide it. So, all right, and we have Norbert here from SD Elements as well. Awesome. All right, so we talk about the State of the AI report. Please check it out if you haven't read it. It's actually pretty good. And then if you missed the coverage in the last 2 weeks, there's a couple of great interviews. I think that the best one by far was the American thought leaders, but I also had a great conversation with Government Matters and GovCon. Different was actually very interesting in radio, and then the Fox, which is more short, 3-minute, so not a lot of deep dive. But the GovCon, I had a chance to share a little bit about what I think. Unfortunately, we have a friend from Booze, but I can't see your name. So maybe just type your name just in case if you don't know if I can see your name. All right, cool. So now we talk about the news. Go check it out if you missed it. I think Government Matters was pretty fun. A lot of great questions, but the GovCon, a different radio, was actually very fun. So. All right, so now let's get into the meat, of the subject, which is end-to-end agile acquisition. And by the way, I'm writing an op-ed now. It's probably going to be published in the next couple of weeks, and it's going to create a whole wave of next media. But the point of that op-ed is to list the five things that we can do within 6 months that could enable the DoD to catch up with China when it comes to AI, cyber, and so on. So very tangible, precise things. It's not a lot of nonsense. It's actually very precise. I had to shorten it to please the editor of a very large publication to 750 words, which is not a lot. So I couldn't get into a lot of details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a short version for the big media thing. And then I'm going to publish the longer version on a few other media with 2,500 words. And so I'm going to have the ability to give a little bit more insights, okay, and details and context. And so there's going to be a longer publication, smaller publication, okay? We have our friends here from DLT. Rick, good to see you. And so, again, one of the 5 things that I talk about into the open, which I would argue is, almost as important as talent. And number 2 is talent. Number 1 is agile, and why this matters. And so, let's dig into it. I have a slide for you where I go through a few key concepts. So first, what are the right requirements? People always think, contracting officers think requirements. I can tell you when you talk software, and probably when you want to be agile in general, that doesn't just apply to software, right? You want to be able to not buy stuck in time requirements. So particularly, I think when I think as a company, and I think as starting a startup, right? When you when you create a company, you have some money, ideally, or you start organically with some revenue, and then you grow, right? And you're going to grow, and with the money you have, you invest to buy more talent. And the more talent you have, the more capacity of work you have, the more work you can do. And the more effective and agile you are, the more you can produce. And so in this case, when you staff a company and you want to do work and you have, people, right? You want to, your requirements are skills. What do? You create a job description. Or if you're a little bit more modern, you're going to go on LinkedIn and create a LinkedIn job post, right? Or just go on my LinkedIn and ask me to post for you, which I will do at no cost for anybody that is trying to make a difference in DoD. Okay, so if you're trying to hire and you're looking for talent, reach out to me, and I'll make sure we post your job description or your link. And so, you're trying to find skills, right? You're trying to staff your team to bring value to the government, or you're a government contracting officer or PM, and you're trying to do work. So your requirements now, instead of being, hey, I want to buy this feature with this button here, and the button has to be blue, and it has to be in an oval shape, right? That's not the way to buy. So some people that don't understand Agile well enough, what they end up doing is they take an IDIQ, okay, and they say, well, I'm Agile because I can place orders on the IDIQ, and I can go and say, hey, I want this button, and it has to be round, and it has to be blue, and I need it, in 2 months. But what you miss there is that every order, you need to fund it, you need to staff it, you need to put it through contract. It is not agile, right? It has half-baked agile, because every single time you're going to try to do something, first you're going to need an army of contracting officer. We see it with Cloud One, where 60 people to place orders on the SAIC contract. That's just not the way to do it, right? The better way to do it is to have a capacity team, right? And the capacity team effectively is you buy skills, and ideally you don't buy skills from one company. You do like Platform One, right? We have 275 people, 35 companies on contract. The value streams are led by the government PMs. The product owners are the government people, of course. We groom the backlog, but the value stream is comprised of people from diverse backgrounds from different companies. So we're never getting locked into a single company. We have options. We have diversity of opinions. All that stuff, right, is obviously enabling us to be agile, because now we have a capacity team. I have 275 people, and I can assign them, to value streams. And I can, of course, ramp up and down and do another order on the IDIQ if I need to get 20 more people, 10 more people. That's an order, but that's not an order for one button. It's an order for 20 people, right? So you buy time and material, but the critical piece is what we're going to be talking after this, right? So you don't just buy wasted time. So when you have that time and material, and you have the 275 people like Platform One, now you have a capacity of work. You can estimate how much work you can produce. You have a backlog of things you have to build. You have a bunch of buttons, bunch of things you have to create. You can now, as a government person, group your work into epics, and groom your backlog, and pick what is more important than something else, and that way you can pick, what is the best priorities based on what's going on in the world. Maybe you had an event, China doing something where you're like, hey, I need to do this now. It's more important than this other button here, right? So you become very, very agile. And if, in fact, when you're agile, when it does not take a contracting action to make a change in the scope of work. Okay, so you buy skills, you have people with different backgrounds of expertise. If it's around Kubernetes, you can have DevSecOps engineers, and you're gonna have developers and UX designers and support teams and site reliability engineers, and you're gonna have all these kind of roles. And now, of course, the key is in the contract, you need to have different clauses to make sure you're not getting manipulated by the contractor, trading off talent. You have different options to do that. One option is the key leader position, KLP in the government. What that is the contractor cannot just swap talent without working with you to make sure you're not getting maybe during the interview you got team A, great people, and then after 6 months they replace it by team F, right? You don't want that. So for Platform One, we had 30, 40 people that were KLPs. So they were critical. They had to go through interviews with me and the team to make sure they can just swap people, right? That was great. But the other more important piece in the delivery, right? Because you don't want to buy time and be stuck in time, okay? You want to be able to buy quality and security and delivery into a DevSecOps government furnished environment, right? So you don't want to buy time that just gets wasted. The guy is just sitting here doing nothing or producing crappy code. So the issue with the government started to move away from time and material because they felt like you're buying time, but the time is just getting wasted, right? So how do you make sure that you're buying that time with skills and people, but you're not buying wasted time that just go down the drain? Well, we have clauses, called the definition of done. Definition of done meaning in Agile, it's what is considered to be work that is done, that is payable. If you're not delivering work that's passing those requirements, you can't get paid. And so effectively, you have to really be very precise in that clause to make sure you get quality. And the way in DevSecOps is actually pretty simple, because we have a pipeline, right, of static analysis, testing, and having tests and passing tests, and passing linters and getting delivered in production, and passing the user stories in Jira and all that, right? So all these are gates of quality and security and value. So in the contract, what you say is, hey, you have to continuously deliver multiple times a day the code into the JFE DevSecOps pipeline. It has to pass the pipeline, and it has to pass the quality gates and the cyber gates and the testing gates. And now, guess what? You're getting value. You're getting outcomes. And if it passed the user story requirements, unless you wrote the user story wrong as a product owner, you're getting value, right? So that's really how I think of it, right? And that's how you should think of it. And really, you should not buy stuck in time requirements in tech. First, by the time you put it on contract, by the time it's awarded, by the time you learn, and you're going to start doing, I'm telling you, I've been doing IT for 22 years. When I started Platform One, I was very opinionated in terms of what I wanted and the top features and what was a priority. Within 3 months, I had learned enough about DoD and the issues that I had changed my mind on about 70% of the things. Okay, so we think we're smarter, we think we know it all. We don't. You need to have room for learning. You want to learn fast, don't fail twice for the same reason, right? Fail fast, learn fast, don't fail twice for the same reason. So again, the requirement in this time and material contract is capacity of work. You buy FTEs, right? You're buying people here, and then you buy the right skills. Of course, you're going to tell me, well, we're buying skills. How do I know I'm getting the right skills? Well, that's great, right? It's a good question. Do you need Python developers? Do you need Java developers? You look at SpaceX, they have full stack engineers. Maybe that's how you need to think about it, right? Maybe we shouldn't be just buying people that are just knowing, one thing. But you also sometimes need expert, right? Site reliability engineers and Kubernetes, experts with maybe some certifications from CNCF, right? So you want to think about that in terms of that's your requirement now. That's your skills. You need a UX designer, right? You need a project manager, right? All these things you need to think about, okay? So really take a step back, stop thinking buttons and what you trying to build this beautiful website with whatever feature or weapon system, doesn't matter, right? Think of teams. What do you need in terms of skills to achieve your outcome? And staff it. Decide which roles are key leader KLP positions, right? And then you can decide how do you interview. So that's the other thing we learned at Platform One. We did not have a mechanism in the initial contract to be able to do something when 80% of the work is being done by 20% of the people. That's not good. It's not healthy. It's not efficient. We need to be able to track velocity of work. We need to try to keep track of metrics, key metrics, mean time to production, mean time to delivery, the velocity, the quality, passing the all the requirements. That is a massive lift, right? So keep that in mind. At the end of the day, you need a mechanism to be able to replace people. You need a mechanism to select. Don't select people. So when we had 35 companies on contract at Platform One, we were doing interviews with people, right? I want to talk to the person, just like a company, right? You're not going to hire someone in your company and not talk to them, right? You need to talk to who is going to be doing the work, not the sales guy, not the CEO, right? I want to talk to the engineer. I want to understand what makes him tick or her tick and what they like or don't like, right? And how to use their skills in the most efficient way. When you spend enough time, you know which value stream they should be working on. Maybe this person is better with people, so you want to put her into, customer satisfaction, right? Because we need to think as a company in the DoD, right? Platform One is a company inside of the government, right? We're serving the warfighter, right? The DoD programs. Not, when I'm mandating them to use the product, they should want to use it. Even if they're mandated to do it, they should want it, right? That's how you're building something of quality, right? So now, keep that in mind. Yeah, don't read the captions. Yeah, so people are saying the captions. That's my accent, and that's AI, right? So that's AI, and AI needs to drastically improve when it comes to French accent text to speech recognition, because sometimes it makes me say crazy stuff, right? So that's not cool. All right, so we talked about requirements. We talk about capacity of work versus stuck in time requirements. We talk about not buying wasted time by having a definition of done clause in the contract to say, I need to be delivered in a GFE DevSecOps environment. It has to pass the pipeline, the tests, right? All these things are essential, right, to scale. But now, how do you don't select? So you have these, this contract, and we use a basic ordering agreement for Platform One. We could have used an IDIQ. It doesn't matter, right? The contract vehicle, there's pros and cons, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You could do Agile with almost any vehicle. You just have to think differently, right? So what you buy, you're not buying stuck in time requirements, okay? And so at the end of the day, to don't select, you need to think of a few things. For Platform One, we wanted to build a 275 people team, right? We also wanted diversity and big and small and a little bit of everything. But at the same time, and also add some stuff with clearances, some stuff we didn't care about clearances and care about skills, right? So and yeah, so when it comes to don't selecting, we wanted to make sure at least the companies could bring enough talent, right? You can have, prime on a contract like this that have two people, right? I mean, that's just not going to move the needle. So we had some barrier of, okay, you need to have enough people, and we need to be able to have a diversity of choice, and you want to be able to swap people if they don't work out, right? So you have to define that too. What are the threshold by which, if you don't meet those, maybe 3 times in every 3 months or every month, right? You don't meet that metrics. Maybe you have a capacity of work average of the team, and if you have one developer always under that velocity and that productivity level, based on your data coming from Jira and GitLab and whatever else, right? You can now say, that is just not cutting it, right? We're not there. We need a new person, right? We need to swap people. Okay. So think about that. Now, when it comes to down selection, you can have different ways of down selecting. Of course, number of people. You think differently now because you don't want a single company. Don't ever buy again a single company providing a turnkey thing, unless it's COTS and you can just buy it, right, off the shelf, right? If it's off the shelf, buy that, right? But if you're going to do custom software and you're going to build something, you need, as a government person, you need to understand the landscape. You need to be the product owner. You need to be able to do the integration. The government is the integration body, right? You partner with a bunch of companies, have diversity of opinions. Don't just depend on one company to tell you what they think is best. Don't get locked in anymore, right? Have based on the volume, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look, Platform One is 35 companies, right? Because we have a lot of different kind of expertise we need, and you don't select based on different criteria of understanding of the mission, understanding of the work, experience. And the key is experience, right? Take people that have done this before. Why are you hiring people that don't know anything, right? You're not here to pay to train them, right? So hire people with experience. Don't think of certifications, CSSPs. I'm on the board of this stuff. It's pointless. You could pass CSSP and never touch a keyboard and pass this freaking certification. It has no value. It doesn't tell you if someone is a good cyber guy or not. It tells you they can learn and memorize a freaking book. Okay, you need to find ways. That's why the CNCF certifications are a little bit more hands-on, and they're a little bit better because you have to do exercises. You have to do the stuff. You don't just talk about stuff, right? You have to do it. So look at those. Look at ways to really understand. Are they capable, right? Maybe you do exercises, right? Maybe you have them do a piece of code. Whatever it is you want to do. For me, I'm a tech guy. I'm going to ask very precise questions. I'm going to get into the weed of one thing. And I like Istio, right? I'm going to go into Istio and I'm going to say what CLD is used to be able to whitelist service A to talk to service B. And how does the mutual TLS self-rotating certificate process works in Istio? I just came up with stuff that's so precise. The interviewee can bullshit his way out of what I said, right? It's just too precise. I'll know if they lie, right? Or if they don't know the stuff. Okay. So, all right. So don't select. How to continuously improve. Have those metrics. I managed to convince, Brian Finster to leave Walmart after 20 whatever years. He's one of the best guys on the planet. Brian is just awesome, and we convinced him to join, Platform One, and he's leading also the all the metrics work we're doing, and he's building this great capability to track metrics. That's how you do it. You want to improve, you need to have metrics, objective metrics. Talk to Brian. Brian is like so much smarter than me on this. He can tell you all about metrics. In fact, I'm going to have him on the show. I'm going to force him to come, and come and tell us a little bit about what kind of metrics he thinks can be helpful as a contracting officer to know what's working and how to improve, and what kind of culture and there's a culture aspect there, but at the same time we oversee taxpayer funding, right? We need to do right by the taxpayer, right? And then people ask about contract vehicles. I'm not a contracting officer. Maybe Jason will talk about this in a minute, but I think contract vehicles don't matter. You can do this with an IDIQ. You can do this with pretty much any vehicle. It doesn't matter. You can pick whatever. Pick your poison. And we're going to bring Jason in 2 minutes, and he's going to tell us more about what he thinks. But I don't think contract vehicle, people that just say the contract vehicle is the answer, that's just, I don't believe that's correct. And yeah, Brian Finster is him right here. And so also, we talk about buying talent, right? But what about licenses and services and stuff like that? Well, for example, what I was pushing in DoD was to create an enterprise IT contract where we have, a bunch of the big resellers. I mean, DLT is here today, but, Carasoft and whatever else, right? And we have the big resellers because that's just the way it works in the government, right? You're not going to go direct to the companies. Most companies don't want to do that, right? So for companies that want to sell to government, go to DLT, go to Carasoft, right? Those guys do this for a living. But you will build a vehicle where you negotiate with these guys and say, hey, I don't want to wait to place orders, right? So if I have F-35 or F-22, they want to buy, 20 GitLab, 20 Jira, whatever, right? They want to buy different things, different licenses. They can come and place orders under 30 days, right? Get whatever license they want to buy. And, at the end of the year, and you make it so it doesn't overlap with the government year, but you shift it. But at the end of the contract year, right, we look and say, well, 20 programs, ended up ordering Jira and GitLab. So based on the volume of what we bought across DoD, not just one program, right, but across DoD for that 1 year, you get a bulk retroactive discount. So you get that money back, right? And then you can spend it on more cool stuff, okay? That's a better way to buy in terms of bulk. Because the issue, if you have to group orders, what people do in the government is they group orders, right? So they're going to go and say, hey, F-35, F-22, F-6, you want to buy Jira? Okay, you have to put it together, wait, make sure the timing aligns, which it never does, right? So now the order takes 180 days because you're waiting for everybody to wake up. And then one of the program walks away and now you lose the deal. So that doesn't work, right? You want to be able to place orders one at a time, but you want to be able to get the bulk discount retroactively. Whoever create that vehicle will be very successful. So that's exciting. All right, cool. So now we talk about some of the stuff I wanted to share, but enough about what I have to say, because I want to bring of course Jason. And so Jason, I'm gonna bring him up first, and then we'll introduce Jason. So Jason. Here we go. Jason is here with us today. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Nick.
And so Jason came, from USDS, and I love to get a little bit of his background out. But first, I'd like him to do a quick intro, and then we'll take some questions live. But I thought Jason's background, not only is a good friend of Christina, who I respect a lot, in the former Air Force and now MITRE, but I think Jason has a lot to share, both about his time in the government as officer, then civilian, and now USDS. And for people that don't know what USDS is, maybe Jason, you can give us a quick rundown. Over to you, Jason. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Nicholas. So my name is Jason Catman. I come from a bit of a unique background as far as contracting officers go, although I'm not one anymore. So I started out in the Air Force. I was going to be a pilot. So I got to sit around with the B-2 guys at Whiteman Air Force Base, and I got to go fly jets for a short period of time down in Oklahoma. And I quite frankly, I washed out of pilot training, probably for good reasons. And I landed up in contracting because I had 24 business credits. So I was like, crap. And then one of the things that kind of really irked me about the career field at the time was that people were so focused on the contracts and all the rules and regulations, they really forgot about what we were trying to do here. And so I guess the long story short on that was I've always had an understanding of the mission and the reason why we all do what we do. We all have different roles to play. Rules and regulations are important. They're there for a reason, but we also shouldn't use them as a mechanism not to get what we want. Same with companies and profits and all the rest like that. We need to be aligned about, around what we're trying to do. so I got out of the Air Force and went in the private sector as a consultant, hopped around the DC area there on some really great engagements, everything from project management to business development for products and services, to also, I guess, on the ground consulting, staff support at certain areas. I had the opportunity to join the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, as part of one of my consulting gigs, not only to do the work of the, I guess, to implement the recommendations I had made at the time, but also selfishly say, when I was in the Air Force, I really liked my time in Colorado Springs, and I used as an opportunity to jump back out to Fort Collins with the USDA, where I've been for the last about 11 years. Since then, I spent about 10 with the Department of Agriculture, and in the last, I guess, few months since June, I've been with the U.S. Digital Service. The U.S. Digital Service is a very small group of technologists, mostly from the private sector. A little bit dated, but like, Google, Facebook, Sony, we're more diverse than that now, but that was kind of the inception of it. And it was really formed around the healthcare.gov debacle. If you remember the small team that was brought in to fix that, that was the seed of U.S. Digital Services today. So it started underneath Obama in about 2014, and it survives today. We just recently got a good round of funding from the ARP legislation. Pretty cool thing about us is we're all considered digital services experts. We've got engineers, product managers, about 10 or 11 procurement people, which I'm one of them. But we're not contracting officers. We're not GS 1102s. We don't have warrants. So there's some really cool factors that we get to do there. That, and also everyone is brought in at a pretty good grade. And it's also a 2 to 4 year term. So after 2 years, you're out unless you extend to 4, and then you're out again. So you don't get the entrenched, I guess, bureaucracy that can grow up in other places. One other thing I didn't know, I was a reservist at the Pentagon as well, so I kind of saw how the sausage was made there, although I was a pretty low-ranking officer. So mostly people just kind of squinted at me and wondered what I was doing there. And then I go back to my civilian job and actually get asked my opinion. So it was pretty funny to have that. So I guess in reflection of what you talked about, Nicholas, so I'll actually say, like, I agree with most of what you said. There are some things that I don't, and when I don't agree with things, exactly. When I don't agree with things, it's more or less saying, and I'm going to weave this into a segue in the Agile Manifesto. It's really about responding to change over following a plan. So when you talk about contracts, right, no single contract is going to solve your problems. No type of pricing is going to solve your problems. You need to have the right mindset when you come into it. And this is very, very difficult. And I'll use an example. Some of the issues we've had in my past is, when it hits the fan, everyone wants to go back to the program management principles and say, well, where were your gate reviews? Well, the fact of the matter is we did a ton of gate reviews with you. We just didn't call them, milestone, whatever it is. So having the right people who have the right training and the right mindset, specifically the Agile mindset, is going to be important. And when you look at things like the manifesto, right off the bat, it says, we are uncovering better ways of developing. It doesn't say we know it all. It doesn't say apply this framework and you're going to be successful. It basically says we're trying to do better here. And you really need everyone on board to have that, because we've got so many rules, whether it's, program management rules or contracting rules. We can slap ourselves silly with all these rules all day long to whip whoever, made a mistake, or we can figure out ways to do better continually. So I guess the bottom line is you need to apply the principles of Agile, whether you're talking DevSecOps or the thing beyond DevSecOps that hasn't been defined yet. You need to apply these principles to your own specific situation. You can use corroborating evidence from other places. or that have been successful. But at the end of the day, you need to tailor it to your own organization. Whether that's, for instance, U.S. Digital Service, we used to preach fixed price all the time. Found out that was because people would just kind of shut the door on us if we talked about anything else. So we made it work. Same time too, you might have a contracting officer who says, well, the guy's butt was in his seat and he met all your certifications you put in there and your education requirements. I'm making a joke there. So therefore you got to pay him. So you really do have to have that understanding of, what are we trying to do here? Are we delivering value? If we're not delivering value, then we need to have a conversation. I guess I'll make a few points more before we kind of get into some questions. So again, train up in the Agile Manifesto, make sure people are on board. It's been a while since I've been in the DoD. The bad news about the DoD is it's like the biggest bureaucracy in the whole world, right? Literally. The good news about the DoD is it has a lot of rank structure. So if you get the right champion with the right number of stars or chevron on the flag, you can do really cool stuff because they can clear the road. A lot of other places you have to rely on people with just influence. And that, I guess I'll say, there is no shortage of good leadership in the military. It is absolutely trained up from the first ROTC class and basic training for enlisted all the way up. The bad news is you do get to higher ranks by, following along sometimes, and those leaders try to balance it. So the good news is you should hopefully have someone who can fall on their sword and say, this is my fault. Generally, I think that's a good tenet. Does it happen? No, but that's, organizations in general. So have that leader who can let you fail. Try to do things that are small. And everyone says this, but my problem with my past life is Congress would give us like an obscene amount of money for 1 year. And then we'd have to go award it all because we, weren't sure we're going to get it the next year. So there are issues with it, but start small because you need to tailor this approach to your organization. You can't take, cookie cutter what worked at one place and apply it to yours. Digital transformation, change management is going to uniquely mirror your own organization regardless. And you need to be smart enough to go to respond to that change and have that agile mindset to do it. One other big thing is build in feedback loops. This is a big thing for acquisition. There's some great documentation out there called the Myth Busting series by OMB. Most contracting officers, whether it's through lack of time or just crustiness or because they were told so, through practice passed down from years and years, don't like to talk to vendors. The best way is to get out there one-on-one with vendors and do good market research. Send them RFIs, send them the RFPs. I would love to get to the point where you're sending out a request for a proposal to the vendor community as like a test environment, and then let them mark it up and give you feedback before you go into the big thing at the end of the day when timing's short and you have to get something awarded. So building feedback loops with your contracting officers. Contracts need to be alive. Just as you can't do things that are set in time and requirements, you need to make sure your metrics are up to date. This is a big thing for companies. You need to be able to prove your value of what you're doing. I don't believe in like butts and seats. I don't believe in key personnel. I don't believe in education for sure. Certifications are hit or miss. I think it depends on the level of technical you need. I always used to joke, I got my PMP because I wanted to get out of contracting and into program management. I understood the vocabulary at the time I got it, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And the best people who were project managers just been doing it and hadn't had time to take the boot camp. So be really careful about trying to control your inputs. Instead, focus on trying to control your outputs. And that's where you as a company need to understand how you can measure yourself and show that you're adding value continually and adjusting those metrics away from vanity ones. Velocity isn't, well, one, you can't really compare velocity across teams. So that's going to be something hard to look at. That being said, what I said right up front, we are uncovering better ways of developing. don't be afraid to do something because it might fail. Just go say, I've got a theory this might work. And then in a month, come back and see, did it work? If not, trash it. That's the time to update your contract. So there's all kinds of little things.
So question there on the velocity across teams, which you're
Mm-hmm.
spot on, right? And that's why for me it was so important to have, mixed teams, right? So one value stream was never comprised of one company. It was always people from different companies staffing effectively that one value stream. But then I was using the velocity of the team to compare who is bringing enough value or not in that one team.
Yeah, and I'll generally say, I'm not a developer. I understand velocity from a construct. I mean, you can game the system at any, whatever it is. I mean, that's just how it is, and that's where companies need to partner with the government. I noticed one thing about past performance, a question there, which we can address. But I mean, the big thing is you have to go and say, every single month, these are the things that I'm doing that I believe add value. Do you agree? You have to be doing that with your government customer. And if it's not, then change it.
What's interesting is, when I did my first contract, well, I didn't do it because I don't do anything, but I asked someone to do it for me. And it was my first government contract, and that was for Platform One. And I didn't realize that, the criteria of down selection were so stuck in time, right? You could never change that. And so I kind of glossed over it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I thought it was so common sense how to pick the vendor. What the contracting officer had put there was just completely useless. And I couldn't do interview. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't, I had to ask exactly the same question to everybody. And like, how do you want me to do an interview? And that if someone says something stupid, I can't keep asking more about what you just said because I don't have the question on my list. How do you deal with that?
So, one, a couple of different things. One, I wouldn't do a down select first round for an orals. But I don't know if you did or not. But orals are fantastic ways to go get into it. I think there are different ways you can run scenarios if you want to be more rigid. There's nothing in any of the FAR that says you cannot ask unique questions of a vendor. That's a misnomer. That being said, you don't want to go. I mean, actually, I mentioned this a while back. We had a company that was it was for farm loan programs, and during the down select and the oral presentation, we're asking them questions and say, we're going to batch all this processing at night. And we're going, well, but the farmer's sitting in the office right now waiting on whether they can get a loan or not. So we asked 2 follow-up questions, and then I was like, okay, everyone's got to shut up because if we ask them one more, they're going to change their approach. Or go, oh yeah, of course I meant to do it in real time. We didn't want to go and lead them onto something that would effectively change their proposal. But there's nothing wrong with getting into the meat to clarify what they're trying to say. So it is a fine line. I think you just have to be attuned to, how much you're leading them in making sure things are fair. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's
so.
Great.
I guess the big takeaway is
you got hundreds of questions now.
Yeah, you can ask any question you want.
Back to questions. I think you did get quite a few.
Okay.
So if you're okay, we can take some of the questions that went straight to you. I'm going to answer this one question that came from me for Platform One, and then I have a bunch of them for you here. So Bob asked, as task orders on Platform One are being recompeted with multi-year option years, do I see that as a departure from the original vision of the meritocracy of the BOA? I think it depends, right? First, there are options, so they don't have to use them, which is good. 2, I think it's also painful, right, to do all this contracting work. So I think once you have a winning team and it's just performing, you don't want to be not able to just keep keep renewing, extending. I think the key piece is, why do we decide to use the option or not use it, and also, are we still doing more onboarding of new companies? I think that's where we dropped the ball. We have not done and I keep saying we, but I'm not in the government anymore, so it's not my problem or fault anymore. But I still trying to help. And so I think they should do a new onboarding of BOA holders. So we have new options, more diversity of options than the 35 companies we have now on the service contract, for example. And so we need that additional onboarding. And the option years, I'm not too worried about, as long as you don't use the why do you decide to use it or not. If it's not driven based on the right metrics, then yeah, I have a problem with it. Otherwise I don't. But let's bring up some of the questions.
I can chime in that one too.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I'll go back to Agile Manifesto. Responding to change versus following a plan. I had a very similar blanket purchase agreement when I was at the USDA, where we awarded an option off the first one. And I'll tell you, it was a purely self-inflicted wound because our onboarding was just atrocious. So in order to get these teams fully up to speed and producing value, part of it was also, and this is a little bit, tongue in cheek, but like we had to prove value within the construct of the BPA at the time. So we wanted to make sure we weren't just changing things out immediately. So I think there's some pragmatism in it, and things don't always follow with what the absolute spirit of it is. And I think you're going to find that with Agile implementations too, as you try to balance the, as you trying to balance. I mean, for instance, I'll joke, like we got the scaled Agile framework. I kind of joke that's like putting something in the government's hand to outweigh all this other crap that they, previously held, and they're performing the Indiana Jones, idle head swap. So the boulder doesn't come crush them. So, versus just calling all chaos and just saying it's Agile. Like you got to give people an opportunity to come along and to figure things out along the way. And sometimes that might mean sacrificing a principle in the short run. The important thing to understand is you have to understand that as a intelligent decision, and you want to readdress it, not think that's the way to go do it. So don't let the pragmatic decision get lost in time, I guess, is the bottom line. And actually, I'll point out one more thing. As a company, you can do things so for instance, a company could have come to us and said, look, Department of Energy or wherever we're at, we're using GitHub, we're merging all our things, we don't need GFE. I've got my own process to vet these people that's just as good as yours. Yours is just a formality. Let my people get on board, start developing, integrating. We're testing this anyway, yada, yada. Give us the excuses we need, or the ammo we need to go lobby for the smart things to do. Because if it's just left up to the government to try to figure out, we've got too few resources, too few perspectives. So help us do the right things by giving us the tools we can use to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And that's also what I think a lot of government people have a tough time doing. Collaborating with the companies. They feel like they're stuck in this little box and they don't want to make a mistake. I remember I was reaching out to people proactively, and even when they reached out, I was taking meetings, and people were like, "Oh, maybe you shouldn't talk to those people, or maybe you should wait for the right condition to talk to people." I'm like, I'm just going to talk to them. It's just interesting how people get freak out for this kind of stuff. But Emily, I had a question for you. Either you read it or I read it. It's up to you.
Sure. Your
accent is better than mine.
I want to respond to one thing you just mentioned, though. So
yeah, sure.
And people, I got to be careful with how I say this, but take this in the in good faith. Market research doesn't need to be fair. You shouldn't be asked as a company the same 5 questions that 100 other ones are being asked. It's up to you to prove value that you are worthy and contributing in order to have those deeper conversations one-on-one. During the solicitation phase, the contracting officer is absolutely the focal point and the only person who should be talking to contractors. That being said, they can talk to them as much as they want. Part 15, which is the mother of all FAR parts, it says that the contracting officer can talk to anybody they want, and if new information comes up, they have to provide it at the earliest possible opportunity, but no later than the next amendment. So I could talk to Nicholas at his company. I could talk to Brian at his company, square the information, make a decision, then I could actually call up everybody and say, hey, this is new information. Be aware amendments coming out, or I could post out an amendment. Again, agile mindset, responding to change. If I'm about to do something stupid, let me know so I can change my course of action for the best. Now, granted, you can get into like this, the COSP4 problems, and I've been there as well, where you're trying to respond to too much change, and at some point you just got to move forward. But everybody should be absolutely talking to every company as much as they can to get information about what they need to do. Diverse opinions, government makes a decision, then moves forward, and then that solicitation phase, that's when things lock down. If anybody counters that within government, point them to the OMB Mythbusters stuff. Press them on why they think that. And I'll tell you, if you think that, while market research does not need to be fair, it sets the stage for fairness, knowing that it's going to be a transparent process. And I guarantee you, the mountain of protests that are on one side of because the companies want to find out more information versus the molehill of ones because someone overshared is staggering.
That's 99% to 1. I found that people were protesting sometimes just because we were not willing to talk to them and give them the right feedback. And honestly, when they got the feedback, they were almost, apologizing to me for not only protesting, but also failing at bringing the value they were supposed to bring to the table, All right, let's take a question. You read it. You have a better accent than me, so.
Well, which one is it? Who's the poster?
Oh, it's on the screen. You see it on the screen?
Oh, I see. Okay, said the magic word gates and metrics. How can companies effectively control the outputs with EVMS and Agile metrics? Okay, so I don't support EVMS within the Agile construct. I think it's a throwback to trying to do good in from a program management perspective. I was actually talking with our leadership today. We've been buying digital services for 50 years. As long as software development has been out there, we've been buying it. It's been only recently we've decided that this is really something different than what we've had before. So, this isn't a great answer, but again, I'll try to be putting things in people's hands that say, I'm giving you information that's more valuable than EVMS. That being said, you might, because of the inability to clear it based on policy, you might have to go and just comply with the metrics. When we did it, the USDA, it was fixed price, capacity, one is one, and it was kind of a joke after a while. That being said, I think this is also very important for you to have a champion who can go talk to those people and say, this is why we believe this. At the end of the day, sometimes you got to roll over and provide them what they want, and it's not worth fighting the system. I actually think that this would be fantastic for like an ACT-IAC or somebody else to pick up and talk about things about why EVMS is no longer a good construct. And actually just kind of, we had to look at ways of doing things better from a policy perspective. And that's one thing that's kind of stuck around. So anyways,
in fact, when we
garbage.
Yeah. And, when we did the swap study for the software study for the Defense Innovation Board, we actually insisted that EVM was going to be not part of the answer when it comes to software and Agile. So it's actually on the new contract vehicle that followed that process, and the new software pathway in DoD that was just created about a year ago. EVM is actually out of the picture. So we have another question from Joel here about color of money, and customers don't always have. I don't know what that means for software. I don't know. But I think let's talk about color of money.
So I'm going to punt this a little bit too, because I have been blissfully in a world where I don't have to worry about the colors of money in my last roles. But I'll say this, from my observations, people are very misreading what colors of money apply. Especially when you get in the DevOps world. someone made a comment on LinkedIn that I actually called Christina Rylander on, and I was like, I'm having problems like functioning right now, because it seemed to appear that they thought that in order to do software development, they needed research and development money.
Mm-hmm.
And like I
Yep.
had to reboot. It was painful.
It's
And
very common.
it is, and I think that's where the education comes in. Yeah, I mean I mean, we talk about CapEx, OpEx, all those kinds of different things. And again, it's been a long time since adult colors of money. I think the conversation you need to have is a discussion, and it also belongs with the budget officer, not just the contracting officer. One of the things that I highly recommend this, if you're in the DoD, take the digital DNA course. We'll talk about balanced teams and making sure everybody's on board. You want to go in with every single tool in your toolkit. And by having someone stand on the sidelines and think that development equals development, that's an easy problem to fix. And I would take that all the way to the stars, literally, to get that kind of thinking wrapped out. Or if I'm absolutely dead wrong about it, prove me wrong, because I want to know I'm wrong fast.
I don't think you're wrong, but for people that don't know what digital DNA is, that was created initially by OSD ANS with Tori Cuff, and Christian Rylander is helping from the meta standpoint and the implementation in the Air Force and Platform One. And it's a great set of courses to learn different things. And really, I think when it comes to Agile Acquisition, it's probably the best course that I know for people that want to learn more about Agile. So check it out. If you don't have point of contact to Tori or to Christina, just shoot me an email. I'll make the introduction. All right. So there's a question for me here from also Joel. On Cloud One, can Cloud One take different color of money? Yeah. So I've seen Cloud One pretty much take all color of money that I've seen, and also know that with the Defense Innovation Board recommendation, OSD ANS created, and Congress, of course, created BA-8, which is the single color of money for software in DoD. So programs can apply for that, and you end up having the same color of money, no more O&M, sustainment, and R&D. So single bucket of money. Technically speaking, it's R&D money, 3600, because they made it a subcategory of R&D money. But it doesn't matter, because you end up having a single bucket, and you don't have to worry about what is sustainment versus O&M versus R&D. The fact is, software is never done. That's why when you think capacity of work in software, when you start thinking staffing and manning of that lifespan of the software that's never done, and how it continuously evolve into the next thing, that makes a lot of sense to have a single color of money as well. So
yeah, and I'll point one thing out too for all you federal civilian people who might be out there, and I'm not an expert in this at all. My problem of getting too much money at once was a continual issue. It might have been unique to some of the programs I was working on. But every time we start talking to people about that, they say the working capital fund under I think it's the CFL Act or something similar, allowed us to do something different with that. I don't know of any agency that's really using it for that stated purpose. So if you know more about that, I think that's another thing you could use to talk to an agency about how to do things better. And also, again, I'll say this: from a contracting officer standpoint. Competition is extremely important. I think it's good to have a broad pool, but there are also the companies that come back and continually add value to you that inherently, just through the basic psychology of moving towards comfort and moving away from discomfort, you are going to go and gravitate towards too. If you can start solving some of these problems, specifically with saying, I did this for Air Force, you should do this Army, or I did this, DOE, you should do it for USDA. Come in with these things. The government people want to do good stuff. We're just blinded and swamped. So if you can help us out of a pickle, it goes a really, really long way to be included in a future acquisition, or at least to just be one of those specific companies you're talking to get that inside track on something, which again isn't unfair. The fairness starts with the solicitation.
Cool. So next question. I don't have the name. I'm sorry, but in my exit post, I guess I mentioned that we have the tendency to put 04 and 05s, and doesn't matter the rank, but really people in what should be very technical roles, like in charge of cloud and DevSecOps and whatever else, where they have no experience at all in the subject matter. And so I said that was obviously a very big problem and that we shouldn't do that anymore. And that LinkedIn user is asking, do I think that this tendency to undervalue that tech experience contribute to the risk aversion and analysis paralysis decision patterns we've seen? And I think it's actually very true, because when people don't even understand the problem, they're gonna. I've seen like great material leaders and program manager kind of do what they love to call this risk reduction effort, trying to see what sticks. So they don't know what to do. So first 2 years they're just gonna blast money and try to do a bunch of different things and see, okay, which one is going to stick. We've seen it with ITAS in the Air Force, where I would argue if you actually put someone that knew about IT as a service, they would have come to very rapid conclusions and make decisions, because they have the background to do that, and just move fast and fail fast and try different things, but not just like, hey, I'm going to blast a bunch of stuff and 10% ends up walking out. And it's also part of the risk aversion, right? If you don't actually just do risk reduction efforts, in fact, ITAS, I think next year is going to do the first award of the first 3 years of the program. That's a real award versus a risk reduction effort. How do you call that moving at a pace of relevance if it takes us 3 years to do just risk reduction stuff, when we should already have 5G and fiber across all bases in the same time frame, and yet we don't. And that has to do with both the lack of expertise and also the fear of making mistakes and failing. I've seen great DARPA is dying because DARPA is now so afraid of failing in launches and tests and things. That's why you see China doing 200 plus hypersonic launches versus less than 9 in the United States for hypersonic launches. So that's not how we succeed. That's not how SpaceX succeeds on the commercial side, and how now we can move at a pace of relevance. So it's a big concern when we're so concerned of failing that we don't do anything. That's even worse, right? All right, so lots of other questions. So let's try to bring a few. And again, if you have questions, guys, please make sure you put the Q in front of the question, so I know it's a question, not just a statement. Because right now there's a lot of statements, and I'm trying to find questions, and there's just so many. All right, so Joe has a question. Is taking a graduate course on securing space assets for cyber. What are my top concerns for the acquisition cycle for space assets? Well, I think the top one by far is supply chain, both of the hardware and the software. I think we vastly underestimate supply chain tempering from China when it comes to chips and different pieces of the puzzle. And also on the software side with dependencies and provenance of some of the software. So I think it's something to particularly pay attention. But I also talked to a lot of space companies recently, and I can tell you that the bar of security in space is just mind-boggling. I've seen companies tell me they have no encryption whatsoever. I've seen, CTOs starting into new space companies tell me that they had to fight for a year to convince their teams that encryption was even important. I even have anecdotes of Elon Musk initially dismissing the importance of encryption because he felt like the telemetry coming from the satellite wasn't such a big deal until some of the satellites started to do more and more, and potentially we could inject stuff back to satellites and decode and see some of the the video feeds and different things coming from the satellites, then I think he started to be like, whoa, wait a minute, we need to pay attention to this. So I think it's kind of mind-boggling. Even geniuses like Elon Musk, right, dismiss the importance of security. And honestly, systems should be baked in, security should be baked into space. It's kind of mind-boggling that today in 2021 you have a lot of new space companies, and yet there's no cybersecurity baked in. So, Jason, anything you want to share with what are your concerns on space? Or
as much as I do love it, actually my main contracting thing was the 21st Contracting Squadron, working some classified down there, which was cool, for Air Force Space Command. Kind of separate from that, but I'll use this as an opportunity to talk about any kind of new organization. One of the big things I see as far as as leaders in almost any way, you either put in a new position. We saw this a lot from DoD coming over to the civilian world, is they immediately construct what they had at DoD. And I think there's opportunities with Space Force. It by definition was recognized as something different. So don't go build the same crap you had back at the Air Force to do what you're trying to do with space. Recognize why it's different. Make intelligent decisions about what things are good and what things are bad. Don't just go and recreate the wheel because that's what you know. Have some guts. Go build something new. Try something that fails. Champion a small group to go just continually have small cycles and learn feedback, and then extrapolate and scale that from there. So use the opportunity to be different, to actually be different. Don't just layer on junk because you're comfortable with it, or because you want to be. And I'll make a fun of. I probably shouldn't make fun of SESs in the military because they take their position seriously. But don't just build the same organization your boss had because you now want to be that boss. Go be yourself. Go do things intelligently while you have the opportunity to go do that.
It's okay. I can't say it for you. I was an SES, so. All right. So Sticks here. Hi, Sticks. Was asking, hey, there's word on the street that the ODCA is moving to a cloud-native model away from code mobility and vendor-neutral model. How do you recommend the industry influence this in the right way? So I think I'm very concerned. I do see at least some broader acceptance of cloud, cloud-specific models like Microsoft or Amazon or so on. Design, reference design in DevSecOps particularly coming out, which honestly don't improve or change the existing cloud agnostic reference design in any way, shape, or form, but yet creates a massive vendor lock-in to a single cloud provider. So I'm always baffled, when we decide to get locked in without any benefits, right? What are the pros? Where are the pros? They keep saying, well, you're going to move a little bit faster. I dispute that because we have all the automation, infrastructure as code, and configuration as code to instantiate Kubernetes and all that stuff on all cloud providers now. So there's really no faster speed benefits or anything like that. That's just a lie. The reality is, I think the ODCA is trying to create better relationship with the cloud providers. And the cloud providers, of course, are doing their job trying to get people locked in and sell more cloud services. So I think it's a little bit concerning because what people fail to realize is, first, the DoD is a special beast. If you're going to do weapon systems, are you going to have that cloud API at the edge when you launch your satellite or when you have your jet in the air or your ship or sub? How does that make any sense? Most of these also are not even on the high side. So what are you going to do for parity across classification levels? So I think it was so exciting to see us create a reference design for DevSecOps that was cloud agnostic and yet was using the benefit of cloud. So using the elasticity and flexibility of cloud providers while ensuring we have an abstraction layer between the work we do and the implementation with the cloud provider, and still being able to run on all cloud providers at the edge with snowballs and Azure stacks and so on. So it's a little bit short-sighted. There's no real benefits of getting locked into a single cloud provider. We're not in 2010. Jedi was a pretty good example of why that doesn't work, but yet people don't learn, huh? And so when it comes to industry, I think, of course, the cloud providers will be biased and they will try to not help much, I think. But the other side, right, all the products and value on top, the more you help the adoption of that abstracted layer with Kubernetes, and the more you use containers, and the more you don't depend on these cloud APIs. I've been helping a lot of companies, trying to figure out how to do business with DoD. And I was talking to a company again yesterday, and their SaaS software is so locked into three cloud providers. They bought companies. So one company was running on Google, one company was running on Azure, one company was running on Amazon. So now if they want to run their stack anywhere, they have to have 3 cloud providers because they have not done any job to merge the workload into a central place. They all depend on dozens of cloud services that are not FedRAMPed. So I tell companies, right, use containers. Don't use the cloud, don't get shortcuts trying to move. You think you're moving fast, but I would argue you're not. And people, this is not just a DoD thing. With companies on the commercial side, finance, healthcare, retail, moving to Kubernetes on their premises and clouds, they want to be controlling that control plane. They don't want you to run as a service. They want you to run your stack and provide support and manage service in that stack. So don't design it to be locked into one cloud provider. So first, containerized, use the Lego blocks, reuse the existing containers and operators when you can, and try to really avoid getting locked in yourself, which will compound the adoption complexity, when the DoD tries to implement this. So that's my answer for you. Jason, anything you want to add to this?
No, you were on the very edge of my comprehension there from a technical perspective.
I try to keep you on your seat, So you can mess with me in acquisition, but if we talk Kubernetes,
and actually, so it's a good point. Like, push people, educate them, because I could just have a bad day and go pushing to some dumb solution because I didn't understand it. Like, educate me on these things of why we need to do these smart decisions, so I can then go talk to my boss when they're trying to railroad me into, telling me that I'm not special.
Yeah. And so Yoni has a question saying hi to me and thanking me, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. So I've praised private companies' best practices, no doubt. We can thank SpaceX from being able to send American astronauts to the ISS without having to use Russian rockets, right? It's pretty good. I'll take that one. And so there's obviously GAFAs and others, but again, not everyone is created equal. I've been pushing a lot and complaining about Google, right? Walking away from Maven and dropping the ball there, and Google is kind of trying to wake up, and I see a lot of good stuff happening. They created this whole new website showing what kind of cloud services they got FedRAMPed, L5. It's great. But I keep pushing, right? This is not enough, right? If Google wants to play with DoD, you need to freaking do a classified region, right? Don't come to DoD if you're not going to have a secret and top secret region. You're wasting my time. Go elsewhere. Go to USDA, right? That's plenty fine. But if you're going to come and pretend you want to do business with the Department of Defense, don't show up without a classified plan. That just, we're not here to do business work. We're here to do weapons. If you can't help me with weapons, you're not helping me. So I'm going to keep pushing companies to stop talking and do more, right? And just go beyond the basics. And so that's a challenge, right? Because I get it, right? For Google to set up a classified region, first, it's a massive investment. It's huge. I mean, it's tremendous. Both Amazon and Azure are struggling to keep up, and the parity between the commercial regions and the government regions and the classified regions are despicable. You are a year to 2 years behind, which is obviously not great. So we're creating issues. I get it, but at the same time, we have classified workload and we need it, and we can't just declassify our trust crypto and be like, oh, we're going to put classified stuff on commercial regions. We can't do that, right? So that's a problem. So what recommendations also do I have to overcome the fact that companies are struggling to do business with DoD? Well, I'm trying to help by at no cost. I'm not charging for this, right? Let's be clear. Talking to a lot of companies to see, okay, what would you do, to sell? Well, you need resellers, right? We'll talk to DLT, talk to Carasoft, right? So you have the right access to vehicles. Get accredited. I help with Iron Bank. How do you get your containers in there? How do we get you passing all the requirements? Fifth compliance, 140-2, supply chain. Show me your scan. Show me your container scans. I can tell you, well, I wouldn't approve this. You have too many CVEs. You have dependencies that are 8 years old. Wake up, So we want to do better with supply chain. The supply chain in software is despicable. You look at Atlassian with 1,400 CVEs. Then you wonder why there's critical CVEs every few months, right? We need to step up the game, and that's not for the government. That should be for everybody, right? And the key that I tried to implement in DoD was to remove the barrier to entry for these companies to do business with DoD that didn't make sense, right? There are some things that make sense and some things that didn't make sense. And I think we removed most of them. I think you can go from no business to DoD to being in the department now in 6 months. That's pretty good. If you compare with healthcare or finance, I would argue it's almost the same velocity for large markets, right? So it's not that much more investment. It's a massive market, and we need it. And the fact is, the more we can publicly say that China is an existential threat to the nation and our kids' future, and the more people know what we see on the classified side that we can talk about, and the more we can maybe declassify some of this malicious activity and they can see the threat, I think more companies are going to be willing to come and help us because they're gonna be they're gonna want to help us fix this. The issue is we overclassify everything. We can't talk about it, and we wonder why companies don't care. They live in the Silicon Valley bubble, and they don't even know there is a threat, right? We have a DoD bubble. There's a Silicon Valley bubble too, right? So we need to pop both of them. So what maybe Jason, what do you think we could do to help companies do business with DoD better?
I almost want to flip it around. We've got so many events out there and industry days and all this stuff. There's so many different publications.
Yeah. Drastically improved, right?
What's that?
It drastically improved over the last 3 years, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. It's a big market. I think one of the tenets we push at U.S. Digital Services, as well as a lot of places, even within our solicitations, is to get the companies to care about the mission. And I think tying that to China or other kind of existential threats for the DoD is important. Why is it important to have a defense posture of this? And do you think you can contribute? On the flip side, the thing that makes it hard, again, is just the bandwidth. DoD's got a lot more people than where I come from, but the amount of chatter and just BS that you hear from companies, it just, the joke is people go, oh, y'all got money over there? Well, I want some money, but they're not willing to take the time to understand what your actual problems are. And then just say, you know what, I'm not there yet. I'm not going to bid. Instead, I was joking with my kid the other day.
Yeah, half-baked doesn't work in DoD, right? I see a lot of companies trying to do half-baked stuff. I would argue Google is doing half-baked stuff when they don't do classified regions. That's just not good enough. Step up your game. You're the largest company on the planet, one of the largest company on the planet, for God's sake.
Yeah, as a company, you can't whine that the government doesn't have a requirement for you. You need to go and make sure you're adapting to things that makes sense.
What do you tell companies that say, well, I would rather focus on healthcare or financial sector? Then I don't want to do that. Yeah,
go for it.
But what if everybody goes for it? What if we lose them all?
Well, then I think there's an existential crisis within the DoD.
I think it's here. I think it's. Some people would argue we have it right now, right? The DIB is shrinking to a degree that's never been seen before. The DIB is buying each other companies. We're left with less and less options, right? Look at the big primes; they're swallowing everybody else. You get large contract like GBSD with a single bidder. It's replacing all the nuclear silos and missiles across the ground in the next 9 years. And there was only one bidder of the contract, one of the largest contracts on the planet. is it a good situation to be in when you only have one bidder in a contract like this?
Yeah, no, I mean, from a supply chain perspective, it's a disaster. And you can't. I don't necessarily want to rely on a prime contractor to meet my socioeconomic diversity goals, and that's not from like a selfish standpoint. That's just like altruistic. I think everybody in the government needs to think about. I mean, so I was so sick of the whole like one throat to choke. Oh, I want one throat to choke. I mean, people said it all the time. And my standpoint was, why do you want to be choking anybody out in the first place? Just move on. So I think you need to find ways to go and to break up smaller chunks. I think you can bring things up. I mean, the current administration is extremely all for small business and diversity. So I think if you were a contracting officer who just said, I don't have the time to play, general contractor for this. I don't want to coordinate the plumbers and the electricians. Maybe there's something to be done there. I don't know. But yeah, people, I mean, also when you get into Agile acquisitions, I think there's a lot of different things we can do to reduce the burden with, reduce the burden of contracting. I've got a lot of ideas about applying DevSecOps principles to contracts where you can start developing and issuing solicitations out to a vendor test environment, within like 5 days or something. If you make awarding a contract a non-event, you no longer have to go and fear this big process. And DoD is particularly bad. I mean, this is old information, but when I was a lieutenant, I sat around with like 8 other dudes on 2 $40 million acquisitions in a separate facility for 18 months. And I was mature enough to do spell check and figure out grammar. It was versus, on the USDA side, my top mid-level CO awarded $201 million obligations last year, 9 major acquisitions as a GS-13. So there's a lot of efficiency that can be brought to the table to make things less hard. And people want to do hard things fewer times with, do more reps. So there's a lot of different opportunities there, I think, that we can do to make more awards to smaller businesses, again, to try different things. Changing out all the missiles, that's a unique problem that, 3
but we didn't cut it, right? We could have cut it, right? It's like if you have this massive piece of work and it's this monolithic thing and you're trying to have a single company solve the entirety of it, it's
Correct.
Designed to make sure you can't have smaller companies be able to do pieces of it, right?
Well,
of course they're going to become sub of Northrop now, right? But now you're stuck with Northrop, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, and the fallacy is well, I need to do it one way, so therefore I need to choose one company. There are things like technical direction and style guides or whatever it is you want to apply to your situation. There are ways to standardize things. And in fact, I would say the risk is having, one throat to choke with one leader over there making these decisions instead of, I could say crowdsourcing your missile.
Yeah.
But there, diversity of opinion is important, in creating the space and forum to be able to discuss those things. There's value there. It's difficult, but I think that the value may outweigh the fact of being able to hold one firm accountable for things.
But it's hard, right? Because there was only one bidder. I mean, imagine, right? Yeah. For the government to be in a situation like this with a multi-billion-dollar contract, hundreds of billions, right? Contract.
That's a failure of market research
options.
And acquisition plan.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to call people out on that, but if your market research should get to at least 2 people, that's kind of like a hard and fast rule, not only of the FAR, but of just good supply chain sourcing best practices.
Yeah. All right. So there's always a great question from Robert. He's always a genius. So he's asking about how do we enforce supply chain integrity in a code mobility model, and what is the country's monitoring and who is doing it? Well, I think it's a very fast-moving market, and I've been talking to a lot of companies now, thinking about supply chain and S-bombs and all that stuff, and some people are focusing on, hey, I just want to generate the bill of material and have the list of dependencies and the CVs associated with it. And then the next generation companies are starting to actually provide like a management of these S-bombs, and so you can actually do something about it, and you can maybe have gates in your pipeline. And there are a lot of companies now that are trying to bring that continuous assessment piece of the supply chain. Of course, I'm talking about software supply chain here, but when it comes to I've seen, for example, I've been fighting for 2 years with Atlassian and CloudBees to fix their CVEs. CloudBees have done a great job, Atlassian not so much, and CloudBees has managed to reduce drastically the numbers. But at the same time, what I've seen is that still trying to innovate and move fast. And funny enough, they bring dependencies, they don't even scan them, and then they create new CVs. I'm like, you're supposed to be fixing the CVs, not bring me new ones, right? And yeah, that's what I've seen. And so having that part of their pipeline and way of doing business, people just fail to realize sometimes. Unfortunately, you have a new way of thinking when people create companies to only think about the exit or the IPO or whatever, right? And it's not about the part. I mean, Atlassian is a publicly traded companies with 12-year-old dependencies that are not updated, with 1,400 CVs in their product. That should be borderline criminal, right? And yeah, they get away with it, right? And so until Congress maybe creates a real tangible, like at some point you're past, your past mistakes. It's malicious behavior, right? Not updating dependencies for 12 years, 8 years, 9 years. You're past acceptable, right? Your behavior as a company is criminal, right? And so Congress maybe needs to start enforcing or creating some laws around companies that have this kind of pattern, right? Because their answer is, oh, it's not in the code path, which is a pile of BS, because no one knows what's in the code path, because we don't have the source code to validate it, nor do we know if CV1 is going to be able to be used, on top of CV2 to laterally move and find a way to exploit it anyways. It's in the container. If you ship it, you ship a container with the 1,400 CVEs. I don't care if it's in the code path or not. Update your freaking dependencies, right? So it has to be enforced. It has to be part of the pipeline. It has to be a hard line. You can't get away with it anymore, right? All right. Let's see questions.
Nick, I can take one regarding category management.
Go.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the best-in-class vehicles of like calling out GSA or the things like that, making sure that companies have schedules. Yeah, I mean, I can see that as being misapplied. I'll definitely say if they're thinking that it means fewer, larger contracts, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, I think there are some things like, do I want a large laptop blanket purchase agreement? Sure. How many companies is that really affecting? If you're talking about like maybe a small business that, might be a reseller, okay, but is that really the market? Again, I think part of being a business, and especially in business development, is one, demonstrating the value that you have to the government and then letting them know how to get to you. Category management isn't going to prevent a unique company from getting business from the government. There are plenty of ways to get to you. If you're seeing category management applied in obtuse ways that are reducing, valid competition, I think that those case studies need to be brought up, and some further education should be put out there. Again, though, keep in mind, like, they're trying to do a good thing here, so work with them to work the bugs out to get to where they really need to be.
So Robert was asking you if you have any literature or books or anything you recommend people from reading, I guess.
Well, and actually, Robert, I'm going to take a little bit of a guess here and ask if you're talking about some of the DevOps to Agile principle or Agile to acquisition principles. I don't have anything out there yet. Quite frankly, I'm trying to get a bunch of like Tom Sawyer's friends to help paint the fence with me. But that's something that I've been kind of toying around with. And really what it comes down to is applying things like Lean, Toyota Production System, theory of constraints, things like, how to apply the book, The Phoenix Project, to other applications. that's really where it's coming down to: how to increase that feedback loop, how to move reviews and bottlenecks to the left and address them in smaller chunks. So I think anybody could really probably pull it off. I think that the acquisition community is so steeped in acquisition lore that they forget to look at other parallels of operations and see how things can work out that way. If you want to talk about literature, ask me a question on LinkedIn, and I'll try to pop some stuff up.
Yeah, and of course there's all the most common books that everyone mentioned, but I'm going to mention a few. See at the table, if you missed some of the book of Mark from USCIS now is I forgot, maybe Google, I forgot, but he's not in the government anymore. But he also just released another book that I'm reading now. I forgot the name of it, but It's at the Table is just awesome. Of course, you have the more traditional Unicorn Phoenix Project by Gene, and the DevOps Handbook and all those, right? So with Patrick. So check those out. I will be bringing Gene and Patrick here just because I have to do that before people get upset with me. And of course, there's this great contracting document that I kind of contributed to with the AU that's here. Thanks, Gerald, for sharing the link. All right, so let's see. We have a question here. Another LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I don't have your name, so I can't say who that was. But thanks for doing what we are doing. You're welcome. As I know, China has been exporting spies through student programs to the U.S. Many of them are now U.S. citizens and could be working in different companies that have or will have collaboration with DoD. How can DoD prevent such a breach if wanted to work with private companies? It's interesting. I was talking today because part of my op-ed, I'm talking about how do we improve the talent workforce issue we're facing, and how do we attract talent from the commercial side? How do we bring more diversity of talent so we break the bubble with the clearance and stuff, right? Because effectively, there's the other side of it. Of course, you're talking about an insider threat, but if we have the wrong people to do the job and we're stuck with the wrong people, we're not going to succeed either, right? I don't know what's worse, is getting all our IP stolen or being so irrelevant that no one is trying to steal them anymore, right? I would rather have it stolen, right? And my fear is we're becoming the latter, okay? And so sometimes, it's a very much the, like the cloud discussion, right? When we created the government and class regions that are 2 years lagging behind the commercial regions because we were trying to protect our data, but now we realize, wait, we only have 2 physical or 4 physical locations, regions. China can bomb that and we don't have a cloud anymore compared to hundreds of commercial regions that would be much harder to bomb, and they would probably not do that because it would affect a lot of other things. So we shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes, for the right reasons, but we don't realize the long-term impact of those decisions, right? And so in this case, it's kind of the same thing. We're so afraid of insider threat and people coming to do the wrong things, we make it even way too difficult for the right people to come and want to do it. Waiting 38 months to get a clearance, or even 10 months. Or, I've seen people, I try to hire people in my teams, and after a year, they didn't have the job. It was me and SES pushing for the hire, and yet we couldn't do it, right? And many walked away. I lost people that were incredible, right? Or they went contractor because it was easier, or ANAS or whatever, right? So we shoot ourselves in the foot too. So my first thing is, you're right, that's a real threat, but we also don't want to just freak out so much that we lose any new, talent that wants to come out of school or, come from, like me, right? Come from the commercial side and like, I'm going to want to make a difference. I have no conflict of interest, right? I was the most unconflicted person in the department because I've never done business with the government, right? So I couldn't care less, right? Versus, I see people coming back. I mean, you look at, top leaders that have so many conflict because of past roles in the DIB. They left the government, they come back into the government. Now they have, conflicts because they were working for primes and now they can't be engaged and stuff. That's just not good either, right? And so back to your point, though, I think the answer is AI. it's going to be a little bit scary, right? But I'm afraid the best way to know if someone is really going to be a threat to the nation is to use AI to look into social media accounts and cell phones of those people, and openly. I mean, meaning the user being aware that's going to be a thing, and of course privacy, and everybody's going to freak out, and I get it, right? And I would freak out too, and I have nothing to hide, and I would still freak out. But the fact is, if you really want, the only way to really do this right would be through these kind of means. And of course, that's going to be abused, and people will start targeting, potentially Democrats or Republicans based on who is in office, and it could be a problem. And I get it. But the fact is, every other thing that we could come up with is going to be anecdotal and not succeed at scale to find these people, right? And of course, with the adoption of zero trust and better need to know enforcement and limitation of what someone can see, you can mitigate that, right? Lateral movement and access to information. But the fact is, and the only real way to find out and detect early malicious actors is going to be through AI, social media, cell phones, and other things. But it will be a massive privacy concern, and I get it. Although I've been reading that The Office, I forgot the new name of The Office doing the current stuff for DoD now. They have a new fancy name. And they are starting to do some of that, but on the public accounts, the public social media accounts, not the, I guess, not the private messages, right? So I know it's scary, but, I guess you get what you get. Oh, yes. So how did we forget about Brian Finster's new book? Okay. He actually is sending me a signed copy. I'm very excited about it. I told him he's too slow, so I'm still waiting for the book. So I'm upset about it. So I'm still gonna be nice and show the link here. All right. So there's a question from Eddie. Eddie, I think you pronounce it. I'm not sure. How do you feel about people going from the military to civilian to military? I did that for many years. I don't see a problem. What about you? I mean, Jason, you're a former officer. What do you think?
Yeah, I think everyone should move around all over the place. And
the more you move, the better, right? But I would argue you probably want to add another industry. And when I say industry, I don't mean the DIB. I mean like a real commercial company in the middle of this move there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the best thing that happened to me as a contracting officer was being on the private sector side, as well as being a program manager, and realizing what a good contracting officer could do. Before, I hated the profession. I thought it was all 6-part folders and terms and conditions and just a lot of red tape to get where the final speed bump to getting what you want. And I'm making a joke there and being demonstrative, but I think people need to move around. And going back to the previous question, we need to have a very big reckoning with risk all across the government. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of mind reading what Gerald's talking about there as far as accountability and hiring policies. I mean, the people who get promoted, especially in the SES or civilian sectors, it's the turtles who win the day. It's the people outside the ring, and the people who go and try to do things, they burn out. So I think you need different perspectives. I'll say this: if I read Theory of Constraints back when I was a wannabe PM in grad school in like 2003 or something. Until I listened to the Phoenix Project again, I wasn't thinking about some of these same things that I was thinking about now. You absolutely need to understand a diversity of opinion. If you're a contracting officer and you don't understand the industry, shame on you. If you're an industry and you don't understand the government, same to you. You're probably not going to be around very long, in that case. So we have to go and take some measured risks. And I think the big thing is for us to go and say, I'm taking a risk. I have a theory this might be better. It might crash and burn. But then for someone to give me some, gold encrusted toilet seat or some kind of fun award to say, wow, man, you really blew it, but you had the best intentions. I mean, I think there needs to be space for people to go try new things and fail and not just play the I told you so game. Whoever quoted it, I don't know, but they were saying, survival isn't an imperative. You don't have to survive. Well, in the government, as long as Congress keeps giving you money, you're going to be there. So you have to figure out how to take risks to do things better, and get that top cover. And however you find that, I think someone said, people aren't around for very long, and that's absolutely true, especially if you take accountability in government. But anyways, I think the risk tolerance is out of control in a lot of ways, and part of that is because we are doing these things that are too big to fail. If we intentionally tried new things to figure out what works in our individual organizations, and then applauded the failure, the win, whatever else, I think it would go far. Instead of the status quo, which is just you're too busy, you're too worn out, you got 3 kids, you're trying to push the ball, and you get a 2% bonus every year, if that. It's just really, really hard to go put the time and the mental effort in when you have this nice groove process, which perpetually pulls out suboptimal, or turns out suboptimal results, but you did your job right. So therefore you go home with peace of mind, and that mindset's got to change.
Yeah, no doubt. So I have a couple of thoughts and 2 questions we need to take before the end of the hour. So first, I've been concerned also, and I guess it goes to an analogy where I heard a lot of people from Texas telling me that they're afraid of all these Californians moving to Texas to run the state and start voting for Democrats. It's just a joke. But the similarity is kind of interesting, because I've seen personally people join, like Jake, for example, they join AI Center, the office of the AI team in DoD, and tell me to my face that they don't want AI military weapons, and that they're going to do everything they can to prevent it, and instead focus on ethics and do create a bunch of waste and spend a lot of money to take the money away from weapon capabilities, and instead push ethics, and so we don't end up having weapons. In the meantime, of course, China is massively investing, and we're getting behind. That's an interesting thing to keep in mind when we talk about attracting talent, right? We need to attract talent that at least have the same. I was always surprised. There is no real question about the vision, right, of DoD. What do you think DoD should be doing? If people say we should, I had people refuse to shake my hand at the end of KubeCon and whatever Silicon Valley conferences, saying my hands are covered in blood because we bomb babies and whatever nonsense. And that's these people should probably not make it into DoD. And I'm a little bit concerned that particularly recently I see that change, and that's if we get anti-military people in the DoD in leadership positions, we're in big trouble. So I'm gonna say that one, and then we have two questions here. Is there a general baseline for a skill set that a workforce should have today and tomorrow? I can tell you, Alex, the number one skill that people need is self-learning. The reason why I'm here, I didn't go to college. I didn't. I just learned, by myself, and created 12 companies, and I don't have to work anymore. It's because I managed to find a way to learn, and by myself, and particularly now in 2021 with YouTube and whatever else. That the only skill you need is to learn, and particularly when it comes to IT, of course. So don't be stale. Continuously reinvent yourself. Invest in yourself every day. Watch an hour, 30 minutes. Do it at 2x speed. Well, I don't care how you do it, but do it every day and invest in yourself. If you can invest in yourself, what do you expect companies to do it for you, right? That's going to be one. Then I'm excited that Brian is here. So I'm going to make the official invitation to have Brian come on the show to talk to us about how he's implementing metrics in DoD. And plus, you don't really get a chance to say no. So that's good, right? So it's not really an invitation at the end of the day. You have to come. So, and then he's asking a great question. How do we align government incentives so that people are not rewarded for avoiding all the risk? That's a question for you, Jason.
I mean, gosh, that's been the test of time for a really long time. I think it's really tying things to outcomes, and honestly, someone needs to have the guts to stand up at the top and cover, cover things. We'll joke about the EVM. Well, you screwed up your EVM. Okay, well, that's fine. You know, where's the person who stands up and says, you know, honestly, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What we need to do here is deliver. Those voices need to be heard. And actually, and I'll bridge a little bit of this. You know, America is very, very factioned right now, and that's a shame. Regardless of what your political ideology is, you have to get in people who are curious about the other and just about the overall situation. None of these problems are simple. You have to go in with the mindset that you can change things, but you have to understand what the thing is on the ground. So, you know, you really need thinking leaders in there, and maybe ones without a ton of self-preservation. I mean, the nice thing about the military is, you know, you're out one way or the other after a while. I mean, if you don't get promoted at a certain pace, then you're out. You know, there's only so many.
Some last too long, though, right?
Yeah, well, who knows? But you know what?
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I think you have to have intelligent people in there. And I think if you go and you talk about the mission, you talk about the greater good, I think hopefully you can get some of these, you know, the spitballs from the back of the room whining about, you know, this gate review, or you didn't comply with this thing that's obsolete anyway. I think you can get some of that, but it takes strong leadership. And maybe also it's just knowing that you've got options and not being so wedded to one career path. But obviously
there's way more options now than they used to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, 15 years ago.
Tracy is saying, you know, self-learning is not enough if your employer is not supportive of that time investment. I agree. That's why, in fact, in my open, I have a recommendation, right, that the DoD gives an arrow date to everybody to learn in the right construct. But I also think if you find your employer not to be supportive of you learning, you should probably change organization. That's probably a good first step before you even do anything else. I mean, right now I see people like moving job and get 50% pay increase. I mean, that's just completely insane. It's not going to stick, by the way, so don't get too excited. But and then Tracy also mentioned The Kill Chain. It's a great book. If people have not read it, that's definitely something that everybody should be reading, particularly people in Silicon Valley that live in their bubble and don't know what's going on in the world. All right, so we're almost out of time. And so first I wanted just to thank Jason again for taking the time and joining us. You know, USDS is doing great work, and you have a lot of great people joining the government, and it's a great model. You know, I believe all the higher GS-15s rank or something like that, and there's it's a great way for people that are willing to make a difference. They want to come and help specific agencies. They can even say which kind of agency they want to. And that's the thing, right? If you don't like military, don't go into freaking DoD, right? There's dozens of agencies outside of DoD. Go elsewhere. Why are you going to come and do this, right? If you don't like it.
And I'll make a big plug on that too. So one of the highlights of my career was sitting around my office in Alexandria with a bunch of nutritionists trying to feed kids in the summer when school was out. That was really cool. 4 years ago, I was, much younger and loving like blowing crap up, in the Air Force and all that stuff. There's a place for everybody in government. And I'll say this, let's say you are trying to feed kids. Maybe the DoD can learn something from that. You don't, having as many use cases out there as possible is going to be important. And also just say from anything, it's not healthy to be so stuck and wedded to your beliefs that you're not willing to question things. I mean, that's what the Agile Manifesto was all about. And that's what we're still fighting today. So you really have to take the time to understand the landscape, understand the other person. And, at the end of the day, DoD defends the country. And whether you believe that, it happens perfectly all the time, which obviously it doesn't. There's a tremendous amount of good there, whether it's from the shield or the sword perspective. So, but yeah, if you don't want to go work on DoD stuff, more power to you. There's a whole other half of government that, quite frankly, is more funding constrained and affects the day-to-day lives of you and your neighbors, potentially more. So come talk to us. There's plenty of opportunity for good people out there to solve hard problems that affect you personally day to day.
Yeah. So we already have a guest for the next session, and I'm not gonna tell here who that's gonna be, but people are gonna be excited. And then we know now that Brian Finster is gonna come and talk to us about metrics because I gave him no choice. So we have the next 2 sessions lined up. And so I wanted for people in the comments, even after this live event, tell us what you would like to talk about. I'm gonna have a session on service mesh. I think we're gonna bring T-Tray and Solo to talk to us about what they're doing, and I like to make them compete a little bit because they are too arrogant to each other. So I'm gonna make them fight a little bit, and then I love to see what you guys think again of the logo. I'm gonna bring back the logo for a second, okay? Because I do need to pick a logo. So please don't forget to put in the comments, right? Which logo you prefer. A lot of people say 35, and pick whatever. I'm gonna bring it on the screen so people can see. But pick whatever logo and put in the comment, okay? You can go back after the recording you can pause and see better or whatever. But please help me pick a logo. And then next session is gonna be in 2 weeks, Tuesday. What is it? 23rd at 1 p.m. Okay, Eastern, same time. We're going to have a guest. We're going to talk about cool stuff. We're going to announce it. If you have not registered, I need your help because we're being throttled sometimes on social media. So please go to ama.preventbridge. I need to hide the comments so you can see it. ama.preventbridge.com/register. So you can register to get just the email about the next event so you can join us and know it's happening. And then you can come and share with us your questions and even insights, right? So you've seen we try to highlight people that join us. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. This was fun. Thanks, Jason, for taking the time. I'm going to leave the parting words to you for today. So thanks so much.
Sure. Appreciate the forum. Appreciate the opportunity to get some of my thoughts out to a broader audience. This is excellent. Whether you agree with us or not, I think it starts conversations and starts people thinking about things and tough challenges, and the only thing that can come out of that is good, whether that's canceling us or promoting us or just saying, hey, I learned this thing and they were wrong and and I've got a better idea. That's how things are formed, right? So so more power to you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for thinking about and caring about the issues that we care about.
And I cancel culture, so they can't try, but that's not going to work. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And yes, I'm going to post the slides on my LinkedIn as well and the post here. So and then it's going to be on the website as well on preventbridge.com. So thanks so much, guys, for joining. Stay safe, healthy, and keep pushing the good fight. And let's wake up and have a chance to compete against China, guys. Thanks so much.